February 14, 2000, a cold, wet Monday morning. Rain slicked the cracked sidewalks of Shelby, North Carolina, and the sky hung heavy with bruised clouds, choking the sunlight. The night storm had passed, but it left behind a haunting stillness, that kind of silence that lingers after something has been taken. Inside the Degree family's brick home on Oakrest Drive, the morning was supposed to begin like any other. The family had a routine, tight, precise. Harold Degree, a shift worker at PPG Industries, and his wife Equila were proud of the stable, faithful life they had built for their children. Their daughter Asha, just 9 years old, was a fourth grader at Falston Elementary. She was shy, sweet, thoughtful, a girl who liked drawing, basketball, and reading. But that morning, everything fell out of rhythm. At 5:45 a.m., Equila's alarm buzzed. She shuffled to the bathroom, turned on the light, and started a pot of coffee in the kitchen. The floor creaked beneath her slippers. Through the frosted window, the neighborhood looked like a ghost town. Quiet, too quiet. She thought nothing of it, just the remnants of a bad storm. By 6:25 a.m., she walked down the hallway to wake the kids. She nudged O'Brien's door first. He stirred in his bed. Then she opened Usha's room and froze. The bed was made too perfectly. The kind of neatness that doesn't happen unless someone deliberately fixes it. Usha's nightgown, a pale green one with flowers, was folded on the pillow. Her shoes were missing. So was her backpack. Usha was gone. Equila's first reaction wasn't fear. It was confusion. She checked the bathroom. Empty. The living room. Empty. The porch. No sign of her. She called Harold at work. He left immediately and rushed home. By 6:40 a.m., the police were called. No one had seen or heard anything. The Degrees' home was locked. No windows broken. No doors left open. It was as if Asha had simply vanished, voluntarily. But why? Within hours, Shelby police began a massive search. They called in canine units. Neighbors scoured the streets. Bloodhounds caught a scent that led them to a nearby tool shed off Highway 18. Inside, they found candy wrappers, a pencil, and a Mickey Mouse hair items later confirmed to belong to Asha. More chilling were the eyewitness accounts. A motorist reported seeing a young girl walking alone down Highway 18 at around 4:15 a.m., drenched in the rain. Another driver said he turned around after passing her, concerned. When he tried to speak to her, she darted into the woods and disappeared. Who was she running from, or toward? Theories began to swirl. Some said she was running away. Others whispered darker things: grooming, abduction, trafficking. But Asha didn't fit any profile. She was happy, grounded, no history of trouble or abuse. Her parents were deeply involved in her life. She wasn't the type to vanish. The town of Shelby transformed into a community of searchers. Volunteers linked arms, walking shoulder to shoulder through fields and forests. Candlelight vigils burned through the nights. Police put out Amber Alerts. Flyers were taped to every lamppost and mailbox, but nothing. No footprints beyond the shed. No witnesses beyond the highway. The trail ran cold within hours. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. The FBI joined the case. America's Most Wanted aired a segment. Yet every lead fizzled. Every tip led to a dead end. Asha faced the same school photo with her braids and dimples haunted every store window. In 2001, over a year later, a construction worker found Asha's backpack. It was buried in a plastic bag, 26 miles north in Burke County. Inside were school papers and a New Kids on the Block t-shirt. It is her family said she didn't own. Someone had planted it. Someone knew something, and then silence. To this day, there has been no confirmed sighting of Asha Degree, no arrest, no confession, just an ache that never heals. A ghost that lingers in every North Carolina pine. What could compel a little girl to vanish into a storm? What did she know, or fear? And most disturbing of all, who was waiting for her out there? The days following Asha's disappearance were a blur of panic, hope, and helplessness. The Degree household turned into a headquarters of grief. Equila clung to the telephone, answering call after call from neighbors, media, and police. Harold walked in circles through their living room. pausing every few minutes to glance out the window, as if Asha might appear at the end of the driveway, cold and wet but safe. The Shelby Police Department remained adamant. They were not dealing with an ordinary runaway. The search effort grew. Helicopters circled above the rural farmland. Dive teams explored muddy creeks. Every abandoned barn and storm drain in Cleveland County was opened and examined. But the woods swallowed secrets, and nothing led to Asha. Media descended on the Degrees street like a second storm. CNN, NBC, and local reporters camped out for updates. Whereas Asha DeGreen became a headline across the Carolinas. The town, once anonymous and sleepy, was now pulsing with national attention. Volunteers kept arriving, church groups, classmates, parents, strangers from neighboring towns. They brought casseroles, flashlights, and offers of help. But the search, for all its sincerity, began to shift. The longer Asha was gone, the stranger the narrative became. Investigators started looking inward. The Degrees were a quiet, religious family, no history of abuse, no social services reports, but child disappearances often point back to the home. So detectives scrutinized every moment of that weekend, every call, every errand, every interaction. Interviews revealed that Asha had been upset the previous Saturday during a basketball game. She had fouled out early and cried afterward. But was that enough to run away? Her teammates said she seemed embarrassed. Her teacher noted nothing unusual at school. Her journals full of drawings and spelling practice held no clues. The one anomaly, if it could be called, that was the Valentine's Day timing. In Asha's room, police had found a few Valentine cards she had prepared for school. Normal, but oddly placed, folded neatly, as if she wasn't planning to be around to deliver them. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Asha had packed a book. That detail meant planning, intent. In it were clothes, a few personal items, and candy likely from the basketball team's snack bags, and something else, a copy of The Whipping Boy by Sid Fleischman, a children's book about a prince, and a pauper who ran away. Theories erupted. Was she inspired by a story? Had someone been talking to her online or over the phone? But the Degree home had no internet access. Asha didn't have a cell phone. Her world was tightly controlled and protected. Then a man came forward, a truck driver, he said. He saw a girl matching Asha's description walking down Highway 18 at 3:45 a.m. She was alone, wearing light-colored clothing, and carrying something. His description matched the earlier sighting by the other driver who tried to approach her around 4:15 a.m. That driver, who wished to remain anonymous, said he had turned his car around out of concern. When he opened the door to speak, the girl ran into the woods. Why was she afraid? Did she think she was being followed? Was someone already out there? Investigators turned their focus to possible predators in the area, registered sex offenders, truck stops, highway travel patterns. They looked at employees of the nearby Cleveland Vocational Industries building. They combed through arrest records, but nothing stuck. No suspect emerged. Meanwhile, the Degrees held on to faith. Equila appeared on television, pleading for her daughter's return. She's our baby, she said, choking back tears. She didn't just disappear. Harold, more reserved, stayed behind the scenes. But when he spoke, it was with gravity. If you're out there and you have our daughter, please just bring her back. As days turned to weeks, law enforcement tried to widen their scope. They explored the possibility of human trafficking, rare, but not unheard of in North Carolina. Given the highway corridors, they interviewed workers from fairs, delivery routes, and out-of-town contractors. Nothing, just a book, a shed, a memory of a girl running from headlights into the woods. In Shelby, February turned to March, then April. Spring rolled in, but the Degrees' world remained frozen in that stormy night. In May, the FBI officially entered the case. Posters with Asha's face went up in every post office and school in the state. A tip line was launched. Billboards with her photo towered over I-40. The silence remained unbroken. In the coming months, the leads would grow colder, but then a year later something would be found that turned the story again. The woods along Highway 18 remained quiet in the months after Usha's disappearance. The trees bore witness to the searchers who had combed the underbrush, calling her name, but they held their secrets tightly. By summer, the volunteer groups had thinned. Posters faded under the sun. Tips stopped flowing. The degrees were left to survive inside a grief that no one outside their home could understand. Then came August 3, 2001, a construction crew digging an access road off Highway 18 in Burke County, nearly 30 miles north of Shelby, unearthed something strange, a plastic bag, buried several inches deep in the soil. Inside was a child's backpack, molded damp, but intact. The workers turned it over to the local sheriff. The backpack was sent to the FBI's Charlotte field office. Forensics ran tests. Inside were a few articles of children's clothing, a pencil, and some school papers. But most curious was a New Kids on the Block t-shirt, a design parents swore she had never owned. Equila's voice broke when agents showed her the contents. "That's her handwriting," she said, pointing at a worksheet. "That's my baby's." The bag confirmed what investigators had long feared. Usha had not simply wandered away and perished in the woods. Someone had taken her, and someone had buried her belongings. Why go through the effort of hiding a book bag? Who was trying to erase traces of her? The new location shifted the investigation westward. Burke County was more rural, more isolated, few roads, dense woods. It wasn't a place I'd stumbled across by accident. It had to have been known by whoever buried the bag. The FBI and SBI canvassed the area. Agents knocked on doors, asked about strangers, checked records of property ownership. A few residents remembered a green truck parked off the road around that time. One man said he'd seen a white male in his 30s walking alone near the woods, carrying something, but nothing concrete surfaced. The discovery of the backpack also raised more questions than answers. The burial was deliberate. The contents were preserved. Was it a trophy, a discard, a warning? There was no blood, no hair, no DNA from anyone other than Usha, but the plastic bag had a logo from a regional company that sold industrial materials. Investigators traced the origin, hoping it might tie to a workplace or delivery route, but hit a dead end. Months passed again, in silence. In 2004, a breakthrough almost came. A man arrested for an unrelated child exploitation charge in South Carolina mentioned Usha's case. He said he had heard things in prison, named a possible suspect, but the information couldn't be verified. It fizzled. In 2005, detectives went public again, hoping to reignite interest. They released a new age-progressed image of Usha at 14 years old. Local schools displayed it. News outlets ran anniversary stories. But time had dulled the shock. The country had moved on. The degrees had not. Every year on Valentine's Day, they held a walk in Usha's honor. They retraced the steps she may have taken from her home, down the road, past the intersection, toward that terrible unknown. Harold and Equila kept their daughter's room exactly the same. Her books still on the shelf. Her trophies still on the dresser. "We don't have closure," Harold told a reporter in 2009. "We have a hole." The backpack remained the only real physical evidence. It became a symbol, proof she had been alive after that night, and proof that someone had taken her away. And still, no one had come forward. Not yet. By 2006, the case had stalled again. There were no new leads, no new sightings, no anonymous letters. It had been 6 years since Usha Degree vanished, and though her family remained steadfast, the silence had become suffocating. Shelby had returned to routine. Churches opened their doors every Sunday. The local high school held Friday night games, but for the degrees, time was still stuck at 2:30 a.m. February 14, 2000. Then came the phone call. Detective Tim Adams, then newly assigned to cold case work with the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office, picked up a voicemail left after hours. A raspy male voice spoke hurriedly. "I saw that girl. I saw her in a trailer park outside Asheville, 2003. She was with an older man, white guy, beard. She looked scared. She had a scar on her arm. I know it was her. No name, no callback number. But the message was dated, traced, and investigators were suddenly back in motion. Adams and his team drove out to the location referenced an aging mobile home park about 2 hours west of Shelby. They walked lot to lot, knocking on doors. Some trailers were abandoned, others occupied by transient renters who came and went with the seasons. No one remembered a girl matching Usha's description. Some hadn't lived there in years, some refused to talk, but there was one woman, late 50s, oxygen tank beside her, who opened the door wide and said quietly, "You know, there was this man. He used to keep his niece, or at least that's what he called her, but she never went to school, never talked to nobody, always had bruises." The man's name, Bobby Joe Taylor, a trucker, owned the trailer but hadn't been seen in years. They pulled DMV records. His last known registration was out of Florida. By 2008 he was declared deceased in a motorcycle accident. His trailer had been repossessed. Inside, they found nothing except a child's sock tucked in the HVAC vent, size small, pink trim, no DNA match. Still, investigators couldn't shake the feeling that they were circling something too late, maybe, but close. Meanwhile, the FBI was analyzing digital records, digging into chat rooms, message boards, and online predators active around 2000 to 2004. One name popped repeatedly: Scarecrow64. A user posting cryptic messages on missing persons forums, including mentions of a little girl with pigtails who ran away on Valentine's Day, tracked the IP address to a cafe in Greensboro, NC, but the trail went cold there. Whoever Scarecrow64 was, he had covered his tracks. Still, those words haunted the team: pigtails, Valentine's Day, ran away. Details never released publicly. In 2010, on the 10th anniversary of Usha's disappearance, Oprah Winfrey featured the case on national television. Tip lines flooded. Most were dead ends. But one woman in Tennessee reported seeing a child matching Usha's description at a gas station in 2002. She looked confused. The woman said she kept looking back like she was waiting for someone. A gun too late, no surveillance footage remained. The ghost had returned to the wires. Shadows flickering through time, but never staying long enough to grab. The community of Shelby had become used to the wound. It was no longer open and bleeding, but it throbbed on anniversaries. Usha Degree was a name everyone knew, a face frozen in time smiling in photos. Always 9 years old. The town had changed, but her image hadn't. In 2015, a tip came from an unexpected place: a man serving time in a federal prison in Georgia for unrelated crimes. He claimed he had information about Usha's abduction, said he was ready to confess. Investigators were skeptical. False confessions weren't rare, but the man knew things that hadn't been made public. He described a green car, not a truck, this time a sedan. He claimed Usha hadn't run away. She'd been lured by a woman. This was new. He said the woman had befriended Usha at the basketball game, told her stories, gave her a book, promised her a secret Valentine adventure if she snuck out that night. He said he and the woman had planned to abduct a child for trafficking, and Usha had been the target. Investigators cross-referenced the woman he named. She was real, had a history of drug offenses, lived within a mile of Usha's school in 2000. They brought her in. She denied knowing anything, passed a polygraph barely. The inmate who made the claim died a year later in prison. Overdosed. Was he lying, or was he silenced? The story was never confirmed, but it planted a new seed, that Usha had been groomed, that her disappearance wasn't a random act of violence or curiosity, but something more sinister, a premeditated crime. The FBI revised their theory. They now believed Usha may have known her abductor. The walk into the night wasn't panic or confusion, it was trust or manipulation. Back in Shelby, the Degree family continued their annual walk. By now they'd covered over 100 miles across the years. Each step was a prayer, each mile a defiance. In 2020, the case was again reclassified and reopened as a violent child abduction. New technology was applied to the backpack, touch DNA analysis, isotope tracing on the fabric, but nothing new emerged. The local community had aged. Children who remembered playing with Usha were now adults with their own families, but her story remained. in barber shops, in churches. In the silence of February nights, the FBI offered a $45,000 reward. Billboards went up again. Age progression images showed what Asha might look like at 29. She had never graduated, never gone to prom, never become a teacher, like she once told her mother she wanted. But somewhere, someone knew what had happened. Someone still held the truth. By 2021, 21 years had passed. In most towns, a missing child case that old would have faded completely from memory, just another name on a cold case board, but not in Shelby. Here Asha Degree wasn't just a file number or a statistic. She was a presence, a ghost that haunted school hallways, church pews, neighborhood sidewalks. She should have been 30, maybe married, maybe with kids, but the image that endured was of a little girl with ponytails, white sneakers, and a bright pink backpack, frozen forever in 4th grade. That year, something strange happened. A retired trucker named Ellis Jordan came forward. He'd driven for a now-defunct logistics company based out of Hickory, North Carolina, and he was dying of congestive heart failure. On his deathbed, he told his sister something that haunted him for decades. There was a girl, out near Highway 18, walking in the dark. I thought I was seeing things, but it was real. She looked so small. His sister pushed for details. He said he was hauling logs that night, February 14, 2000, a route he never forgot. Around 4 a.m., he passed through a fog-covered stretch of road, and that's when he saw her alone walking southbound, dressed in white. She had a little duffel bag or something. She looked straight at my truck like she wasn't scared, but it was 4 a.m., and she was just there. He didn't stop. He thought it was a ghost. Or maybe a hallucination from driving too long without sleep. By the time investigators received the statement, Ellis was gone, dead within weeks. But his story matched the original timeline. More eerily, it matched the testimony of 2 other drivers who had reported seeing a young black girl walking on the highway that same night but had never been believed. This renewed interest in Highway 18, a stretch of road that had long been dismissed as a peripheral scene. A search team returned to the area, this time with more advanced equipment, ground-penetrating radar, scent tracking dogs trained to detect human remains decades old. They searched old culverts, storm drains, and forested ditches. One team focused on an abandoned barn several miles off the highway, overgrown with ivy and collapsed in on itself. In the soil beneath what once was the barn's floor, they discovered remnants of rope, a rusted folding chair, and something else. A small plastic hair bead, the kind a child might wear in their braids. Could it have been hers? No DNA could be lifted from it. No definitive link. But it was the first physical object in years that gave the Degree family something to hold on to, however painful. The barn had been owned by a man named Gerald Wash. Deceased, no children, no known relatives. But in his earlier life, Wash had worked as a janitor at Ushaw's elementary school for 3 years. He left abruptly in 1999. No reason filed. No one had looked at him twice before. The Degrees were told quietly, nothing official. Just a weed may have something. Harold Degree, Asha's father, said later, in a rare interview, "It's not the kind of news you pray for, but at least it's news." Then, a second twist. A woman came forward after the story aired again, on America's Most Wanted. She lived in Georgia. In 2005, she said, she had worked at a roadside motel near Macon. One night, a man and a teenage girl checked in. The girl was quiet, afraid. She wouldn't speak. Her arm was in a cast. She remembered because the man called her Star. She wouldn't make eye contact with me, the woman said. But something in her eyes, she was screaming. Could it have been Asha? She said the girl looked mixed race. Possibly black, about 14 or 15. The man, white, grimy. He paid in cash. She never reported it. Until now. The FBI tracked down old registration records. Security cameras had been wiped, but a guest sign-in sheet listed the name Joseph Begg, a fake, surely, but maybe a clue. Star could have been a nickname or code name. Traffickers sometimes used celestial names Star, Moon, Sky to dehumanize and categorize victims. If this was true, it meant Asha had survived for at least 5 years after she vanished. survived, but then disappeared again. Could she still be out there?